Hello, everyone, and welcome to the JCK Youngco Podcast. My own name is Jack.
My own name is Callum.
Today, we've got a very special episode. I will let Callum explain all of it to you guys.
Yeah, so as Jack was saying there, it's a very special episode. This month, of course, is LGBTQ plus Pride. Of course, we just wanted to make a dedicated podcast to the community, of course, where it's not going to be about us. It's going to be about some of the people that we have on. It's basically our way of showing solidarity for everyone. And of course, happy Pride. Jack, you have some people, don't you?
Yes, I have a good friend of mine, David. Basically, he'll be explaining his story. Actually, he's a little bit shy, so he won't be coming on to the conversation with us. He'll actually be sending voice notes, which completely acceptable. And thankfully, he was able to explain his story with us, which obviously he didn't have to, and I'm very happy he did that. And you have people as well, if I remember correctly, Callum?
I do. First up, I have Rowan, who I've known since I worked in Oxfam. He is trans male, and he has like a big story to tell. He's come on. It's all pre-recorded. And I also have someone anonymous as well who wants to stay anonymous, which is completely understandable. Of course, we also reached out on Twitter and Instagram, and we created a form for people who would like to come onto the show. Now, I wasn't expecting a huge response from it because it is like a very touch and go for people to be so open. So, for those that, of course, don't want to be so open with everything and they're going through a tough time right now, just know that our DMs are open. If you need support, you could also go to Rowan has also offered some support through direct messages on Twitter as well. I'm going to leave his link down in the description down below if you would like to go there. So, without further ado, Jack, shall we get on with the show?
Yeah, let's go. And one thing I also wanted to bring up, obviously I'm not from the LGBT plus community, but the only thing I wanted to say in regards to this is my DMs are always open. Like, Callum's gonna leave my actual private Instagram down below, and I'm usually active on that quite a bit. And if anyone in the community wants to talk about it, wants to talk, basically just wants to kind of open up and just basically wants someone to talk to, I'm always here. And yeah, I'll always be here 24/7. Might take me a little bit to reply, but once I do see your message, I'll be here 24/7 for you. Don't worry.
This man never sleeps.
No, yeah. So I don't sleep. So realistically, I will be. I get an average of 3 hours sleep a day. So realistically, I won't be there from about 1 a.m. till about 4 a.m. So if you text me anyway, any time before or after that, you should be fine.
This is a very different Jack. We're not really used to this type of Jack on the podcast.
No, I'm being serious for once.
It's
yeah.
like the Jack we're used to is kind of just all an act.
Excuse me, it's not fucking persona, alright.
Okay. Without further ado, before my head gets ripped off by my co-host, here is an interview that I did earlier today with Rowan.
So my name is Rowan. I'm 23. I live in Cork, and this is my story about transitioning, kind of coming out, and like mental health and all that jazz. So basically, when I was like 14, I came out as bi, and like that was grand. I went to an all-girls school, but it was kind of like in the area. It was kind of known as a school that had all the bi people in it. So that was grand. Like there wasn't really a problem with that. And then at the same time, just there was a lot of stuff kind of going on. Like I had an eating disorder at that point. I was dealing a lot with like self-harm and like suicidal ideation and things like that. So it kind of just made it rough to like go to school and all that sort of thing. So I've kind of been dealing with that for pretty much since then. But then when I was about 16, I was going out with a girl, and her friend was a trans man. And so I was kind of asking him questions about that. And he's like, explain the whole thing of like, when I was a kid, I, didn't want to wear dresses and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, oh, all of this makes sense. Like, oh, I can do that. I can just like be a man. So I came out then when I was 16 that February. Picked my name then that June, um, which is Rowan. I haven't changed that since, but I have changed it legally just over a year ago. Best €200 I ever spent in my life. Um, and then so kind of it was awkward because I was in an all girls school, Catholic school, all that sort of thing. So it was really rough to kind of be the only like out man in the school, apart from obviously like the teachers and stuff. But I knew like I went to the local LGBT group. So I was friends with a younger guy, Logan, still one of my bestos. And so he was coming out at the time, and he was a couple of years younger than me. But because like I was known as like the angry trans, because I knew like if he was going to come out in school, which he hadn't quite yet, he would be obviously under a lot of scrutiny and like, oh, you're friends with Rowan, so that means that you're just doing what Rowan does, like copying him or whatever. So I kind of like not started a lot of fights, but I was really like militant about, you have to use my pronouns, you have to use my name and things like that, just to make it so that, he wouldn't have to be as annoyed about it because people would be like, oh, well, Rowan's being horrible about it, but you're actually nice about it. So we're going to be like nicer to you because of it. And then as like more and more kind of younger people came out as trans and stuff, like I just like people would like be annoyed at me instead of them. But it was grand. Like by the time I got to sixth year, I was dealing a lot with obviously the mental health issues and things like that. Like I was put on antidepressants. I was having like panic attacks and everything like that. I think I went in for maybe 4 months of all of sixth year. And when I was in school, I obviously wasn't going to wear the like kilt that we had to wear, like, so I just wore like tracksuit bottoms and stuff. And I think because they were so glad that I actually just showed up to school, they weren't annoyed at me for wearing trousers or whatever, because they're like, well, he's here, you know. So that was grand. I scraped through my leaving then, and actually got into UCC for music. But it was so odd because I thought I had a place in a PLC in Bray, had the room booked and everything, and then I actually ended up getting into UCC, and my mum was like, "Well, this is a better course. You're gonna go down there." So I think it was about a week from when I found out I was going to UCC, and then a week after that, I was in Cork, and I didn't come home till that Christmas. And I found that really hard, like, because I didn't know anyone in Cork. I had only been in Cork for my audition. So that obviously I was really homesick and everything like that. And then like being so lonely and everything like that, it kind of set me off. Like I actually ended up having a psychotic break. So I had like the hallucinations and the contamination thing of like I would only ever eat food that I made myself, because all this sort of stuff, and I wasn't able to use like my laptop because there's a camera on it, or my phone because there's a camera on it. And it's the whole thing of like, oh, they're watching me, the ominous they. So that was really rough because I couldn't leave the house to go to college, but then I couldn't also do my college work. Thank God Susie let me repeat the year with like paying off my fees and stuff due to mitigating circumstances. But during that year when I was on my meds and stuff like that, it just took me so much longer than I thought that it would for me to recover. So I ended up failing out. And so I had to leave college. But then, of course, because I was in college accommodation, I couldn't live there anymore either. So I ended up actually living in a hostel for 3 months, and then I got a job in Oxfam, as Callum, you will know, and which was also really awful because you get to the point where you're coming home after a day knocking on doors in the rain, and your coat would be wet, but you'd have nowhere to dry it off. So you'd get up for the next day for work and you'd be putting on a wet jacket to go to work. And like, that's rough for someone who doesn't have mental health issues. For someone who does, it is absolutely heartbreaking. Like, so I did that for as long as I could. Then I got a better job. I ended up moving in with my boyfriend at the time. And yeah, I've just been kind of working away and everything since. And because I had been getting jobs and had been introducing myself as Rowan in my new jobs, and they were all really accepting, which I was kind of surprised about. But I mean, Cork is a very kind of open city in that. Um, so they were always really good about, you know, using Rowan in work and things like that. So it's really not something I think about now, like being trans and that. Um, so I've just like, it's been really good that I've been accepted in work and things like that. And actually, I just got in just under the wire. I changed my name by deed poll in February 2020. It's brilliant. I'm able to just slap people in the faces with my deed poll now. It's brilliant. Best €200 I ever spent. But yeah, I at the same time I got onto the waiting list for Johnstown, I think it's called. It's the gender identity clinic in Ireland, and there isn't. This is the thing, there isn't actually a time frame on when you'll actually be seen by anyone. I have my referral letter, but all it says is you'll be seen at some point. Do not call us and ask us when that will be because there is no time frame, you know. So that is pretty annoying. And I know that it would be so much worse if I dealt with like really bad dysphoria, but like I honestly, I've been blessed in that I don't have really bad dysphoria. So I'm good to play that waiting game, you know. But it might be 3 years, it might be four. And then of course we have that whole thing of the HSE losing about 100 150 names off the gender identity clinic like waiting list a year or two ago, which then obviously made their wait longer, but then of course you never know if that's going to happen again. So I would like to get top surgery, and I would like to be on testosterone, on hormones, like because not that I have a huge amount of chest dysphoria, it's just inconvenient really, you know, for outfits and that. It's just to have these two random meat bags hanging out, like it's just a bit weird. I wouldn't like to get bottom surgery at the moment because the technology of where it is at the moment, like the end result isn't something that I know, like I know I wouldn't be happy with it if I got it. Um and I mean, the VAD just served me well enough now. It's kind of devil you know better than devil you don't kind of thing at the moment. So I'm going to stick with that. And I think my biggest area that I would want to change is my voice, because I feel like I have a really feminine voice, and that not that chain smoking fags has helped, which I hoped it would, but you know, so that would be the two biggest things, would be top surgery and hormones for myself.
And just very lastly, then, for anyone that is struggling mentally or struggling to come out or like find out who they are, what advice would you give to those?
So I myself, I didn't have like a really horribly awful kind of time coming out. I didn't have, like, my mom was quite accepting. People at school were like, okay, so I don't have the experience of coming from an absolutely awful time coming out. But I know that it is very lonely. You know, I was the first person to come out in my community at the time. And it can be really alienating when you see people kind of going along their lives and they just don't know what you're going through, and they have no frame of reference for like how to help you, and you know that they won't ever understand. But I know that all you need to do is kind of not wait it out, but like there will always be something, like someone out there who can actually give you a hand. Like I know the Transgender Equality Network Ireland have been so helpful for especially trans youth. And even like it'd be the person that you least expect in your community that might actually be able to understand, you know. And I know that it is really hard, it can be really tough like knowing that you just have to wait. But honestly, like sometimes a change of environment, a change of community, a change of who you're even talking to, can it can really show you that like there is always someone out there. Like there is such a bigger community than what you're going through at the moment, and there's always going to be more people who will understand what you're going through, like what you, especially if you're young. um I know it feels like everything going on at the moment is the be all and end all, and that's it. Like I know myself, I've tried to control alt delete force quit this life far too many times, but it is just kind of a waiting game in just being able to eventually find better people who will understand what you're going through. And sometimes you just gotta wait because better times are a coming. It's just sometimes it's hard to kind of realize that. But and I mean, I'm always here. I think I'm going to be tagged in the thing on my Twitter, so my DMs are open. So.
And thank you, Rowan, for sharing your story with us. Our next guest that we do have coming on, his name is David. David is a very good friend of mine, and he is gay. And what he has done for us, very politely, is he sent us some voice notes. And in these voice notes, he will be telling us his story. Let's get into David's voice notes now.
Hi! I bet you weren't expecting to see my face today. If you're listening on Spotify or Google Podcasts or iTunes, you would not be able to see my face, but if you're on YouTube, you can see my beautiful face. I'm just kidding. It's not that beautiful. Just a quick update, this is an editor's note. This is because David has decided to drop out, which is completely understandable. It's a hard thing to talk about for some people, but that's fine.
Our next guest, who we interviewed earlier today, is Georgie. So let's just start playing that now.
Hi, I'm Georgie and I'm bisexual. So after about a year of deciding whether or not I was actually bisexual and felt like I liked girls as well as guys, I actually wrote a letter to my mum on the 7th of June 2016. I don't know how I remember that, but I do. And I remember writing it and slipping it under her bedroom door before she woke up. And I sat in my room and I was biting my nails, really scared. I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? What's she going to say? She's going to kick me out. I'm going to go have to live with my dad. And I was getting all this, like, these thoughts in my head and I was worried and all of that. And then I remember her waking up about an hour later, coming upstairs and saying, did you write this? Even though I signed it from myself. So I was like, yeah. And as soon as she came into my room, she just looked at me and she said, you know, that's okay, right? I'm not going to actually kick you out. And I was like, oh, it's like all the weight off my shoulders is gone. It's fine. I can be who I want to be in my own house because I'm the only LGBT person in my house. Everyone else is straight because they're boring. But yeah, so I felt more comfortable after I'd actually come out than having it bottled up for about a year. And it was really quite a good time for me after, because that was just after my great-granddad had died and I started questioning things like, do I really want to keep going with myself and actually tell my family this after something big like a death in the family's happened? Would it just embarrass everyone? Would they be like, that's not a good idea to actually come out now? Maybe we should, like, just don't tell us, we don't care. So obviously my anxiety was getting in my head and I was like, I can't do this, I don't want to come out. But my mum was the first person to find out. Then my dad found out and like his girlfriend and all that. When I told my sisters, they just laughed and they were like, yeah, we knew. So I was like, oh, brilliant. The only person who didn't take it well was obviously my great nana from a different time. I understood. I remember crying though. She was like, you can't like girls. I was like, okay. I don't like you now. It's fine. But yeah, my coming out was pretty easy. I know how some people have it really hard, but you shouldn't be scared if you ever decide to, you know, experiment and see what you like and what you don't like with the opposite genders or whoever you like. And if you can't exactly label your sexuality, don't worry about it. Labels are for bottles, they're not for people.
So you say your coming out was fairly easy other than to your nana, which is, as you said, was understandable. What advice would you give to people who are struggling with coming out?
Well, if you're like really struggling, you can't tell anyone, then maybe tell a close friend to start off, because if they react well, maybe you'll see hey, this isn't so bad. Maybe I can maybe tell my mum about it, or my dad, or maybe even one of my grandparents, or a sibling, or a cousin, or whoever. But if you feel as though you can't do it, then don't worry about it, because it comes with time and a lot of thinking, because you'll think one day, hey, I like this instead of this. But then in about a year, you could think like, maybe not. Maybe I'll just stick to this instead of that. It's completely okay when you decide to actually come out and tell people, because it is nerve-wracking, and I understand that. It's very scary, but sometimes it goes easier for others than it does for anyone else. But don't be scared.
After it came out, did you feel like it was, as you said, it was a big weight off your shoulders?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you were free to be who you want to be?
Oh yeah. As soon as I came out, I was so much more comfortable. I felt like I was on top of the world. Everything had just like dropped, and I was like, this is amazing. Everyone knows now it's okay, and I know that I'm safe where I am to be who I want to be. I can express myself.
Have you been to any of the Pride festivals?
I have. My town started having them in 2018, and that was the first ever one. And I went to the 2018 and 2019 one. Obviously, 2020 was closed off for anything like that, because there are thousands of people who attend ours. And yeah, I've been to a few. I want to go to some what's more out of town though, a bit further away.
Is there any coming up in this June?
Around here, they don't have Pride marches in June. They more have them like mid-August time, when everything's like a little less hot and like it's starting to cool down a bit more, and more people can actually go out if there's like, I don't know, some sort of bank holiday at that point, or they just should arrange it on a weekend.
How did you learn about how you're feeling?
When I was growing up, so in like primary school and before I left for high school, which is obviously the first year I came out in high school, but it's probably like year 5 when like this girl was saying, "Oh yeah, I like girls as well," and I was like, "That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool." And then it was after about a year of actually leaving primary school, and then other people were more like, "Oh yeah, I'm bisexual, I'm lesbian, I'm gay," and all of this. I was trying to think like, I don't know what any of that means. I might have to look it up, but at the same time, I kind of got it, because the gut feeling like you get when something good or bad's gonna happen, I had like that good sort of one, and I was like, yeah. So I actually double checked what bisexual meant, and after that was probably like 6 months after I'd researched that and like I'd really thought about it. That's when I decided, yeah, I think this is who I am. And I found that out through people around me, or just simple YouTubers who had like came out who I grew up watching, or artists, singers, bands. That's how I really expanded the sort of LGBTQ plus horizon for me.
Have you had like any backlash at all from anyone?
Apart from my great nana, and every Pride march you go to, you are going to get some people who work at churches and stuff like that standing there with a massive cross saying it's all wrong, you shouldn't be with another man if you're a man, or stuff like that. You always get those people, but anyone else, no. I'm more of a, because I was more of the first sort of girl my age when I came out who actually knew what I wanted and actually came forward about it. I had people coming to me like, "Oh, I'm really confused. I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm this. I feel like I'm that, but I'm not too sure. Do you think you could give me some advice on how to come out to my parents?" Or so I was kind of like a little outlet for people to sort of express themselves to me, and then I said, "Look, I'll give you information for this. I'll tell you about this, and that, and then you can go off and you can tell people if you want. If you're not comfortable, don't worry." But I was more the person who never got the backlash from anyone, but people who come to me would.
So you'd be like a support for them in a way.
Yeah, I was kind of like the backbone for them. I was like, "Look, you can do it. I'll encourage you, and if you don't want to do it, take a step back. It's fine." yeah, I always support people and what they choose to do.
How did you feel about them coming to you for help and advice?
Honestly, I was kind of flattered and overwhelmed at first. I was like, wow, you want to come to me, like the loser who sits on her own in like school, just to talk about how you feel and what you feel as though you're into. Okay, I feel pretty honoured. And then I had like 3 or 4 girls coming to me a week, like completely different from each other, who didn't know each other or were in the same friend group and actually liked someone in that little girls group, and they wanted to like share that with me and actually learn more about it, because when I was in school I was so open about it and everyone was like, yeah, she's the sort of person who I'll go to talk about it.
And for anyone who is struggling with mental health, who is trying to come with terms on who they are and struggling to come out, what advice would you give them?
If you're struggling, then all you need to do is take some time for yourself and sit down, have a conversation, and just be like, is this really who I want to be, or is this what I want? Or is it I'm either just thinking if I'm like this, then I'll fit in with other people? You want to have the conversation with yourself where you try and push yourself to a certain extent, so you don't just straight up like jump off the cliff, like, and I don't know, bungee jump. You don't straight away do that. What you want to do is you want to take a step back and think about it. And if you feel like, yeah, I'm gonna go over what I want to say or write it down in a note like I did, and then you take a step forward. And then as soon as you get to the edge and you feel like I can do this, I can tell more people, or I feel more comfortable coming out to one more person, maybe a family member or a friend, and then you take that leap.
So thank you very much, Georgie, for coming on to the podcast today. It was very brave of you to tell your story. Coming up next, we have Logan, who is trans male, and they have a great story to tell. They're also great friends with Rowan, so thank you for Rowan for spreading the word out there for us as well. Without further ado, let's just jump into the interview.
My name is Logan. My pronouns they, them, they, he, all were. I'm trans and bisexual, so I had 2 separate coming out. First one, after childhood repression, was actually very smooth. I went to the local LGBT group, the first meeting ever, realised on the day that I was bisexual. Thought, oh, cool. Went home. Parents got me a kebab for some reason. I was eating it. And my mom was like, oh, where were you tonight? And I was like, an LGBT group. She stopped dead. She didn't say anything. I was like, oh, God, okay. Went in, was eating my kebab. My parents came in. They were like, you know, we love you, right? No matter what. And I was like, yeah. And that was that. That was that done. So I had a transgender friend in secondary who was coming with me to the meetings. And a few months later, I kind of realized I might also be trans as well. At the time, I identified as a gender, but the problem was in school, this friend of mine was getting shit all the time because they were kind of weird, so everyone kind of used that as an excuse for transphobic bullying, because why wouldn't they? When I realized, I was kind of hesitant to come out to my parents because they did not have a good experience coming out to their parents. But luckily for me, they used my correct pronouns, they, in front of their mother, and she totally freaked out. She started calling all my friends' parents, telling them that I was this monster trying to, I don't know, brainwash their children. And I was totally freaking out. And I thought, okay, she's going to call my parents. I am going to get in there first. So I told them. It was very quick, very impulsive, just, I'm not a girl. Ugh. And that was that. But they didn't react as well to that one. Kind of crept back into the closet just a little bit. When I came out in school, it was a few months later, and it was mixed bag. Some people got it instantly. Some people were like, oh, those two, they're just faking it. Not great, but not the worst. That's around the time I met Rowan. I'd actually heard about Rowan before at LGBT meetings. There were these older girls just moaning about him, you know, changing his name and being trans and how dare he be angry sometimes. Another reason why I kind of didn't come out initially, when I met him, I was like, wow, this guy, so cool. I was kind of already out in school, but after meeting him, I was like, no, I'm going to be unapologetic about this. I've got this. That's what I did. Didn't go well. He kind of gave me some advice. He did kind of say, just be careful about what you say, how you say it. And I was extremely so. Throughout my whole, came out second, third year, throughout my whole time, I got so many compliments being the good trans guy, you know, oh, I'm so glad I met you first as a trans person, because, you know, other people would just yell at me. And in my head, I was thinking, I would love to yell at you. I would so love to yell at you right now. But I didn't, which helped me in the long run. I experienced some transphobic bullying, but I think it would have been a lot worse otherwise. Rowan, again, very influential figure in my coming out. He had been like wearing the trousers in school because we went to an all-girls school, and he'd been using he, but like the teachers didn't, so it's kind of a whole thing. And in third year, I decided impulsively one day on my way to Irish, I would just bite the bullet. And I marched myself up to the principal and I was like, what do we have going on for trans students? Is there anything you could do? And he was like, oh, why? And I was like, well, I'm trans. What do we do? And he kind of had no idea what to do. He asked me the very cool question to ask a 15-year-old of, what are your surgery plans? Which he then later apologized for, which I appreciated. But it was just a very awkward encounter. But to his credit, he did do his research. He talked to a lot of schools in Dublin. We were in Wicklow. He asked them what they had done, and he slowly started telling teachers, you know, oh, we have a trans student, which then eventually became, we have this trans student. Although there was one time he had told me, oh, we're going to have this meeting today, and I'm going to tell all the teachers that it's you we're talking about here. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I can cope with that, I think. And this just happened to be the time where I got my English mock exam back from the junior cert one. I remember I did this essay. The title was Behind the Mask, and I was like, oh yes, trans privilege. I can use this. I wrote my essay. I thought it was class. Thought it was great. And I got my mock back, and it was 1 mark below an A. And I was like, okay, that's fine, I guess. I was looking through it and I got to the essay and I was like, those are really low marks. I wonder why that is. And I looked at like the split up, like, so there was like, I assume grammar, that type of thing, but there was also plot. There was 10 marks going for plot. And this teacher, who, if you ask anyone who goes to the same school I did, knows exactly who it is, she had taken 11 out of 10 marks away for plot. And after the class, because I really cared about English at the time, I was like, oh, like, how did I lose these marks? What's going on? She went through the paper with me. We got to the essay, and she was like, well, you shouldn't write about this kind of thing. People will not agree with that kind of lifestyle choice. And I was, at that point, I had just gone numb. I was nodding, yes, okay, yeah, uh-huh. And I marched straight to the principal once again, and I was like, yeah, so this just happened. What do we do about that? He was not happy. God, I can't give him enough credit, to be honest, in hindsight. Like, she was our year head. The next year, she was not our year head. I never had her again after that year. That was cool. People liked me for that one because nobody liked this woman. That sticks out to me. That was very upsetting at the time. So we told all the teachers, and then at the start of 4th year, September 5th, I remember it really well because I was told to stay home. They had an assembly where basically the principal, the vice principal were like, Logan is trans, he's going to go by he pronouns, and that's that. You're going to have to deal with that. The teachers will be using that. And the principal told me afterwards that he was expecting like calls from parents, but it didn't happen, which is a relief. After that, it got a bit easier in some respect, not from teachers, because a lot of teachers were not happy with it, but from students' point of view, they were kind of like, I guess we can put up with this. That also might have something to do with the fact that in third year, now I don't know if this is like potentially triggering, I don't know. There was this one girl who I knew, and every time I went in business class on a Wednesday after lunch, she would come over to me, and her friends thought it was hilarious that she would like brush up against me, touch me where she should not be touching me. And I don't know why I never said anything. I never did anything. I just kind of sat there and took it, which is not like me. So, but I just guess it was my response to it, which I don't probably wouldn't happen again. But it just went on and on and on. And eventually, I was in art class. She had taken my phone because again, hilarious. When I tried to get it back, she started. I am chronically ill, a lot of back problems, that type of thing. And she was digging her hands into my back, and I was screaming, begging her to stop. And I went home that day, and I told my mom, "Oh yeah, no, my back's hurting." She was like, "Why?" And I told her, "Oh, this girl did this," and she went ballistic. She was like, "Why would? How did that happen? Did that come out of nowhere?" And then I told her, "Oh well, no, because she did all this beforehand." And my mom again was like, "Why did you never say anything? That's so unlike you." It was only at that moment that I realized that, oh, that's bullying actually. Weird. He just hadn't caught it. I just kind of blocked it out, which I think is very strange. But basically, my mom called the principal again, and he called her in. Apparently, read her the riot act. She called in, and it stopped. It stopped after that. Before that, I had been getting some remarks and things, but after that, my student life was kind of a lot easier going through that trauma, but then having an easier life after it because of it. So after I came out properly, my coming out assembly, I was called he. I was originally going to go by them, like they, them, but I thought if I have to go through school dealing with everyone and their mat being like, oh, they, it's just like a plural thing. It's so hard for me to get, you know, I just can't do it. I genuinely couldn't cope with that. The idea of that was exhausting. So I was like, no, that'll do. Rowan's advice was to just be careful about what I say, but I decided no, I am not going to say anything to anyone. I'm just going to take it. Makes me angry to think about now. Like, why did I take it all? Why did I not say anything? You get treated so badly when you try to correct people, even in the kindest possible way. Just like, it's he. Oh my god, it's like you just murdered someone that they love. It's most shocked and appalled, and it's really bad. And seeing the treatment that Rowan got before me, I decided I don't want that. I was outspoken about other things that I cared about, gay stuff and capitalism stuff and all. But for some reason, I was confident in my thoughts on gender. When it came to defending myself, I just didn't. After secondary school, I decided, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm not going to be the good trans person anymore. I'm done with that. I want to be myself. And then I did my PLC. It happened all over again, except worse. I had never had to come out to a large group of people before in that way, because in secondary school initially it kind of just spread through word of mouth. So I told someone, they told someone, they told someone. That's kind of how it worked. Same with my family. My mom kind of told people. So when I got to college, I had no idea what to do. So I just didn't tell anyone. I told everyone my name was Logan. And I told people more so my own age or I was close with, oh, it's they, them, I'm trans, whatever. But there was this whole group of older people or people I didn't talk to a lot who just assumed I was a woman, and that was difficult. But I didn't know how to go about doing that. And also, these people liked me. I didn't want to have to deal with these people if it didn't go well. But then at the end of the year, we were giving our portfolios because it was a portfolio course to the universities, and I had to put my dead name on it because it's my legal name. This one woman who I had the utmost respect for, loved her. She was helping me put my labels on because I was in a bit of a rush, and she saw it. She started calling me by that name, even though for a year she'd been calling me Logan. And then all the I had a lot of older people in my course because it was an advanced portfolio course. and they were all incredibly talented people. They all started calling me this name, and I was heartbroken because I just didn't know what to do. I thought I'd done everything right and correctly, and I wasn't asking anything of them. This was a name they were used to, and yet the second they kind of caught what was going on, it was like, oh, well, this is the real name. But like, you surely have to make an effort to do. God, I was distraught about it, to be honest. That was when I really had the realization that there's no sure way to make my life easy having to be around cis people all the time. I got into university, great. And this year, it's probably been a bit easier because it's been online. I don't have to face these people, but I have been unapologetically trans, totally and completely, not in like an aggressive way, I don't think, because I don't have to deal with the repercussions of that later. If people call me she, I'm immediately correcting them. I no hesitation. There was one time there was this tutor and she was like, "Oh, Logan," because she didn't know who I was and she was just reading the list. She was like, "Logan, oh, was that a boy or a girl?" And I I immediately unmuted myself and was like, "Neither." And this woman was like, "Well, they told me." And that was a great, well, like, it was a little thing, but I was really, it was a big moment for me because all these people were just awkwardly shuffling. A lot of them didn't know what to do with that. I was beaming. I was so proud. Big groups of people, not my thing, but I'd done it. It's like going over a hill, that moment. And ever since that breakthrough, you could call it, I have just been like that, not letting anyone tell me what I shouldn't be going as or whatever. I feel like before I liked to portray myself as this unapologetic trans person because I would give my takes on things, but in reality it was really scary and very anxiety inducing to come out constantly over and over and over and over. But now it's not the case. Like with my family, my dad's side of the family, great, really accepting. They don't really understand these things, but they want to. They ask like, "Oh, like how do I call Logan? Like what pronouns do they use?" And some of them don't really know how they pronouns work, so they ask. Mom's side of the family were not. They thought it was a phase. They made loads of jokes about it, which I didn't like as an angry 15-year-old. I kind of distanced myself from them, and it was only I was an adult that I actually stood up for myself. The first time I stood up for myself, I think I was 18. My uncle called me she, and I very calmly was like, "Well, it's they." And he told me to stop being so shrill all the time. I went ballistic. I made a total show of myself in public, and I don't regret it at all, because things have been a lot better since. Probably because of my age, that they actually respect me as a person as opposed to a child. Yeah, I cringe at the memory of shouting in the middle of a restaurant, but it worked.
If you had to give one piece of advice to someone who is kind of maybe scared or thinking of coming out, what's kind of one piece of advice you'd give them?
When I was about 18, I was the only person left in my LGBT group. A lot of new, younger kids joined. Very big shift for me, going from the baby queer to the elder queer. But I always told them, think about what you're going to say. Come out slowly. If you're anxious or nervous, you don't have to. You can always wait. Like, there's this big pressure to come out and tell everyone because you know who you are. You don't have to do it. Obviously, the age old, like, if you're not safe, don't do it, obviously. You should be honest and open about who you are if you want to be. Don't let people give you shit. They're going to give you shit anyway. So you may as well be happy with yourself and be proud of yourself while they are giving you shit. Sleep better at night that way. That's what I say.
This is the end of the little kind of special episode that we had. Obviously, this isn't our usual kind of stuff, but it's good every now and then to have a serious episode where we can talk about the things that are happening in the world in regards to the LGBT Pride Month. And yeah, I think it was good to hear everyone's story, and it was good to kind of see different people's perspectives, and it's good to kind of raise awareness in regards to this. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say, really.
You seem a little lost for words, Jack.
I'm not really good at doing serious outros, I'll be honest. I'm the kind of person to scream in an outro.
That's true, yeah. Well, I mean, you could still scream in your outro if you want.
I'll be honest, I'm trying to be serious, Callum. Like, I don't want to scream.
Yeah, but like, there's a difference between being serious and sounding sad.
I'm sorry. All right.
Thanks everyone for taking part, and of course, happy Pride Month to everyone.
All of the necessary links will be down below. Same with Rowan's Twitter. I think his Twitter is going to be down below, and also the same with my Instagram. My DMs are always open. Yeah, if anyone ever needs any support or to talk with anyone, myself and Rowan, and I assume Callum as well.
Yeah, of
we'll
course.
always be here for you. And maybe if you want to speak to both of us, you can just pop an old message to the old JCK Youngco Podcast on either Twitter or on Instagram.
If you're listening on YouTube, please don't forget to subscribe. If you're listening to Spotify, iTunes, and Google Podcast, make sure to do all the same on there as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of JCK and Youngco Podcast, and I hope you all have a great Pride.